The first spark of the war did not come from humanity. It came from pride, alien pride, ancient, brittle, and furious. For centuries, the Korth Dominion had ruled their section of the galaxy with an iron claw. They subjugated weaker civilizations, taxed star systems into ruin, and crushed rebellions before they could breathe. They believed themselves unstoppable. Humanity was merely their next target. The Korth warned, "Pay tribute, or be taught obedience." Humanity refused. And that single refusal lit the fuse to the bloodiest conflict in modern galactic history. What the Korth never understood was simple. Humans do not break. They retaliate. And they finish what others start. Beginning the war they begged for. Captain Elias Ward of the UNS Revenant was the first to witness Korth arrogance in full force. He and his crew were patrolling the outer colonies when the emergency beacons detonated across the comms network. Dozens of human frontier settlements were burning, just minutes after a Korth ultimatum expired. Korth warcruisers descended on human farming worlds like predators falling on prey. They bombed hospitals, stole surviving civilians, and carved their insignia into the soil of conquered towns. On the Revenant's bridge, the crew watched one intercepted transmission in horrified silence. A Korth commander stood atop the ruins of a human school. "Your weakness is your fault. Your suffering is your lesson." Elias felt something cold crawl into his spine. He turned to his officers and said quietly, "Prepare a counterstrike message." The Revenant broadcasted across every channel, military, civilian, even pirate frequencies. "You wanted war. Humanity accepts." The Korth laughed. They always laughed at first. The middle, when humanity became a storm. Human fleets mobilized faster than any galactic strategist predicted. The United Terran Council approved full military response within hours. Every shipyard went on emergency production. Volunteers poured into the enlistment centers in numbers not seen since Earth's ancient world wars. The Korth expected a slow build-up. Instead, they got a hurricane. 1. The Battle of Ashen Reach. The Korth launched their invasion deep into human space, confident their advanced plasma artillery would erase resistance. Their flagship, the Sky Mall Dread Carrier, led the charge. But humanity's strategy was something the Korth had never faced. Adaptability. Captain Elias Ward deployed microshield decoys, scrambled sensor ghosts, and executed a maneuver so reckless it was later named the Ward Gambit. The Revenant dove through an asteroid's shattered crust and erupted behind the Sky Mall's blind spot. 3 railgun salvos later, the flagship was bleeding fire. Humanity did not just defeat a Korth fleet, they annihilated it. Across the galaxy, species whispered, "The humans, they fight like they are possessed." 2. The Korth escalate. Enraged by humiliation, the Korth unleashed their elite, a genetically augmented warrior caste, the Gorvak Enforcers. Standing 3 meters tall and armored in bone plating, they ravaged human outposts with brutal efficiency. On the snowy moon of Velis II, 1,000 enforcers cornered a mere 180 human marines. They expected surrender. Instead, the humans triggered the ice cliffs themselves, collapsing the battlefield into frozen chaos. Marines fought underwater, in zero visibility, in temperatures that should have killed them. Hours later, the Marines emerged, injured, frostbitten, exhausted, but alive. And behind them floated the bodies of fallen enforcers, frozen into jagged pillars of ice. Rumors spread across neutral space. The Korth demanded war. The humans are delivering it. 3. Humanity's counterattack. Rage united the human species in a way nothing else ever had. The Council authorized Operation Cataclysm, a full assault on Korth territory. Planets they once conquered screamed for freedom as human fleets advanced. Cities they once controlled were liberated one by one. Korth prisoners were interrogated, revealing a truth that hardened every human heart. The Korth king believed humans were a soft species and that fear is the only language they understand. He had no idea what language humanity was about to speak. The turn, the king who went too far. 6 months into the war, humanity freed the enslaved world of Ragos. What they found there destroyed any lingering restraint. Thousands of human civilians, kidnapped from the early invasions, had been forced into public labor pits. Some had already died from exhaustion and cruelty. The surviving children were skeletal, terrified, and covered in scars. Among the ruins, the Revenant found a message carved into a steel slab. Your children labor for the Dominion. Your men die in our arenas. Your women kneel before your betters. It was signed by the Korth ruler himself, the Korth king Valrath. There was no debate, no hesitation. Humanity wanted him alive. Not dead. Alive. So he could face judgment. The final assault, dragged through the streets. The Korth capital world, Dravos Prime, was a fortress of steel mountains, plasma towers, and fleets so large they dimmed the sky. The Revenant arrived with the 7th Human Armada at its back. The Korth king broadcast across the system. Humans, you should have surrendered when you had the chance. Today, I end your civilization. Elias smiled coldly. King Valrath, we're not here to negotiate. The battle that followed was the largest the galaxy had witnessed in 1,000 years. Human drone swarms ripped through Korth gunships. Rail cannons split open fortress walls. Ground forces stormed through defensive corridors in brutal close-quarters combat. The Revenant punched through the capital's atmospheric shield and deployed its strike team straight into the royal citadel. The fighting inside was vicious, Gorvakin forces versus elite human marines in a labyrinth of burning chambers. But nothing stopped the relentless advance of soldiers fighting for their species' dignity. At last, they reached the throne hall. Valrath tried to flee. He didn't make it 10 meters. Human marines tackled him, bound him in suppression restraints, and dragged him outside the collapsing citadel. And the sight that awaited him was something the Korth had never imagined possible. Millions of his own citizens lined the ruined streets, cheering. For the humans. The Dominion had oppressed them for centuries. They welcomed liberation. And so it happened. The Korth king, armored tyrant of 1,000 worlds, was dragged through the streets he once ruled, past his toppled statues, past liberated civilians, past the broken symbols of his empire. The galaxy watched the broadcast in stunned silence. Not out of cruelty, not out of vengeance, but because justice had arrived at last. Ending the empire that begged for mercy. King Valrath was delivered to a coalition tribunal, where he faced charges of genocide, enslavement, and war crimes spanning decades. The Korth Dominion surrendered unconditionally. Humanity did not exterminate them. They rebuilt their infrastructure. They helped free their conquered species. They offered a new charter for peace. Neutral civilizations whispered, "Humans are terrifying in war, but merciful in victory." Captain Elias Ward stood before the newly formed Galactic Council during its inauguration. When asked why humanity spared their enemy, he delivered the line that became legend. Because justice is stronger than revenge. And humanity does not become the monster it defeats. Humanity proved 2 things that day. If you demand war from humans, you will get it. But they will not lose themselves to win. And across the stars, every civilization, ally or enemy, remembered the warning carved into history. never provoke humanity. They drag tyrants through the streets, but they never lose their soul.